Hello guys, Sapphire Agami, and this past Monday was the winter premiere of Teen Wolf Season 3B! Yay! And boy was it like, I felt like, seriously though, when I watched this episode, I felt like I was watching a horror movie. Like, that's how intense it was. This episode 13 of Teen Wolf Season 3, and it's titled Anchors. So, in this episode, we start off with Styles. He's asleep in his bedroom, and he's tossing and turning and gripping the sheets, and while he's mumbling to himself, "No, no, no, no." When he suddenly finds himself seemingly awake, trapped in a locker at school, he stumbles into a classroom and he sees the Nemeton growing out of the floor. He reaches out to touch the Nemeton, and thick vines shoot out of the stump and wrap around his hand. He wakes, gasping for breath, back in his room. And Lydia is lying next to him, and he explains to her that he was having a dream within a dream. Inception. Like, seriously, when he said dream within, I'm like, okay, oh my god, we're going through it. We're doing an Inception moment. We're doing an Inception moment, people. Inception. So he realizes that something is odd about this, because why the hell is Lydia in his room? Like, like, even I was wondering, I'm like, what? Wait a minute. Him, because when I first saw this with Lydia in the bed, I'm like, oh, snap, they together now? I thought she was with the big boy. I'm like, whoa. A lot must have happened since cinema time. Wow. Like, seriously, I was like, whoa. I'm gonna call myself about time. Jesus, he's been fantasizing about this girl since season 1. Jesus. So before he can figure out why the heck she's in his bed, the door creaks open. His door. So Lydia's like, no, like, protest something on Kino stay in bed, and he rises to close the door because he says, what if they get in? Lydia becomes increasingly upset as he approaches the door, begging him not to enter. He enters anyway and finds himself outside and once again at the Nemeton. He then screams in an attempt to wake himself up and apparently succeeds. He wakens in daylight in his room. His father sticks his head in the door and tells him to get his butt to school. As Styles explains to Scott about sleep paralysis, which is a condition where the sleepless brain paralyzes the body to avoid acting on a dream in the real world. Styles says sometimes the brain awakes before the body recovers and the person becomes aware they're paralyzed. Like, I had that happen to me one time because I was having a dream while I was being chased by somebody. And so my brain woke up first, and I realized I couldn't move my body. In my mind, the dude was like standing in my doorway. So I was staring, looking at my door, I'm like, oh shit, I can't move. I can't move. There's some scary. There's some really. That stuff is really scary because you thinking like, oh my god, because your mind is still like you're still somewhat dreaming. You're like, oh my god, this man is about to kill me and I can't move. And so when I do eventually move, I end up falling off my freaking bed. It's like, oh my god, that sleep paralysis stuff is some scary stuff, man. Like, woo. So he suggests that the surrogate sacrifices in the lunar eclipse may have had lasting effects on how they are now manifesting in his sleep disorder. So Styles says what scares him the most is that he's not even sure that what's happening to him at the moment is real and not part of a dream. So we really find out that this whole situation from that to that was a fucking dream. Told you, Inception. He just had an Inception moment. Styles wakes screaming in his bed and his father rushes in to hold him. Styles just had an Inception moment. A dream within a dream. We then go over to Scott McCall, who's gathering up his books, getting ready for school. And he turns toward the door and he catches sight of a shadow in his hand. Shadow hand is like a claw. So he looks like, hey, like, I'm not transforming anyone. But his hand is normal. So he closes and opens his hand and the fake shadow is gone. So he opens the door to find Isaac standing there. And then he pretty much, Isaac's like, are you angry at me? And he's like, Scott's like, no, I'm not angry. Why should I be angry at you? And so then I was like, hit me. And Scott's like, I'm not going to hit you. He's like, you haven't done anything wrong. And he's like, did you kiss Allison? He's like, no, but I wanted to. And then Isaac flies through the door into the hallway, striking the wall. And Mom's like, hey, do not touch my patients. Because now she has 2 supernatural boys in her house. Like, ugh, hormones and werewolf powers. Oh, that's all she needs. My thing is with Scott, granted, I know he's still in love with Allison, but you're not together anymore, so why should it matter if Isaac wants to tap that? Move on, Scott. Move on. Like, seriously, I know he's in love with her, But personally, I don't like Allison and Scott together. It's just, it's like so cliche. It's like, Scott, please move on. She has moved on. Trust me. I'm pretty sure she has moved on. And trust me, when you get to the late in the toe, oh, she has moved on. In her mind, that is. Baby girl has moved on. Scott, you need to move on. It's just like, come on, Scott, move on. So his style is now officially away because he's no longer Inception moments. He's getting ready for school, and when he looks at his book, he realizes he can't read the title of the book. It's like mixed up words. So when his dad comes in and asks him if he's okay, the book then returns back to English. It reads Allies and Exes, World War II and the International Struggle for Power. Now when I saw that book, I'm like, Italia, hey, pasta. If you never watched anime before, watch this. Is an anime called Hitalia. It's literally the countries are personified into people, and every event of history is put in a very comedic way, and it's very fun to learn history that way. Like seriously, seriously, it helped my neighbor on her freaking history test. Like so seriously, I let her watch a few episodes of Italia. She passed a freaking history test. That's all I gotta say. Italia is educational in a funny way. So Styles lies, assuring his father that he is fine after the nightmare, noticing that his father is carrying a banker's box marked Sheriff Station, do not remove. Styles questions him about it, and Sheriff still does explain. He simply says they're from a file from office, plus I'm the sheriff, so, yeah. We then see Allison Argent, and she leaves her apartment and enters the elevator. The air becomes much colder, and the lightning dims. Me, when I saw that, I'm like, oh snap, it's a ghost. Call Sam Dean. Call Sam Dean. Sam Dean. Because that's usually what happens in Supernatural. Like, the air becomes cold, and the light starts flickering. I'm like, oh snap, Sam Dean. Girl, grab you some salt. Get you a shot of shotgun, and get ready. That's how you know you watch too much TV, when you start seeing stuff in other TV that reminds you of another freaking TV show. That's how you know you watch too much freaking TV. Yep. I need to get out the house more. Anyway, when the door opens, she finds herself in the basement of Beacon Hills Hospital. The building is damaged, so she ends up entering the morgue, and the door closes behind her. That would creep me out. If I walk into a morgue, the door closes behind me. I would have left right back out. I'm not going to go forward. The door closes behind me? No. That is a sign some shit is about to go down, and I need to leave. But no, she got to be curious and got to go forward. I'm like, oh my God, girl, don't you watch horror movies? Don't do it. Like, everything's like a reminiscence of a horror movie. Like, don't do it. Bitch, run. Like, that's what all you want to say. So, one of the corpse drawers opens, and on the card it reads, case number 113/name of deceased, Kate Argent, place of death, city, Beacon Hills, physician, Dr. R. Smith. The site then triggers a series of flashbacks to season 1, which pretty much includes Kate Argent's death at the hands of Peter Ham. So she looks at the drawer, and it seems the endless stretching back endlessly, and the sound of creaking metal heralds the arrival of a dirty and screaming Kate, who is, okay, I'm trying to figure out, because remind me of this movie, what it is. Crap, it's like, is it The Grudge? Okay, you ever notice when horror movies have, like, creepy characters, and they have, like, that weird crawly thing that they do? Like, you ever seen, like, Mama or The Exorcist, and I think it's The Grudge, and I think it's another one, and they have, like, the characters, when they're, like, possessed, they have, like, this really creepy way they crawl and stuff, like, their body is no longer theirs, and it's, like, it's putting in these weird positions. That's how Kate Argent is crawling up this freaking conduit. It's like something from the freaking Grudge or Exorcist. She's like, ah! I'm like, oh, that's some scary ass shit. Ah! Like, do not watch this episode at nighttime. I'm a really scary person, I would not lie. Do not watch this at night. And so she, that freaks Allison's out. Like, that would freak anybody out. You see a dead body crawling towards you, all creepy like. She turns to run, but as she pushes open the morgue door, she finds herself in the school hallway, and Lydia asks her if she's alright. Allison lies, shaking her head in affirmation. So, Scott then arrives on his dirt bike, so he catches a glimpse of his reflection, and his eyes are alpha, glowing red, like, because he's the alpha. So he shakes his head and his reflection turns to normal. So as he walks across the quad, his shadow then turns that into the alpha werewolf, which is like freaking huge. So he freaks out a bit and begins to run down the stairs toward the tunnel that leads to the athletics field. He runs into Styles, who asks if his friend is alright. Scott lied and said, yeah, I'm okay. Why is everybody lying? You're not okay, Scott. You're not okay. Styles, you're not okay. Allison, you're not okay. Stop lying. So Styles sees through this and calls him on the hallucination. Lydia arrives for Allison and announces that it's happening to all three of them. Whew. At his office, Sheriff Stilinski is working on an elaborate murder board that is covered with calendars, images, and sticky notes with thumb-stacked pieces of string connecting it all together. The sheriff pins a picture of a girl with, who has his auburn hair, and then triggers a flashback of an overturned vehicle with a bloody hand reaching from the back seat to the passenger side window. A post note reading, I hate trying to pronounce some words. Malia Tate is attached to the girl's photo. Lydia is thrilled that she's no longer the crazy one, because as we all know, Lydia throughout the past couple of seasons was always seen screaming like she's effing crazy, but we know why, because she's a freaking banshee, and banshees are known for screaming. So Allison protests that they're not crazy, but Lydia mocks her by saying that various symptoms, hallucinations, sleep paralysis are all signs of folks who are just fine. Scott suggests they are suffering side effects of dying and coming back to life, and they all agree to keep an eye on each other. In history class, Mr. Yukimura, I think that's from Yukimura? Okay, yeah. Yukimura introducing himself to class, explaining that he and his family moved to town 3 weeks ago. How long has it been since the Nemeton? Because remember, Dr. Deer said that the events is going to cause some supernatural beings to come. It's like a beacon to supernatural creatures, like saying, hey, come here. Come to Beacon Hills. Hey, come to Beacon Hills. So, his daughter attends a high school. He then decides to embarrass his daughter by talking about she never talks about people at school and she never brings nobody home. And Kira Yukimura is just like, oh my god, like, really, Dad? Like, that's really embarrassing. It's bad enough that your dad is already a teacher at school, but then he gonna go out there and embarrass you saying she never brings nobody home, she doesn't have any friends, and the girl's like, oh my god. Cause high school is like that. It's like, oh. So Scott catches Kira's eye and the two share a moment before he looks down to see his shadow growing into the monster figure once again. In the art classroom, Allison's hand is shaking as she tries to maneuver a red paint tip to the art paper suspended from an easel. She admits to Lydia that the trembling has been interfering with her fine motor skills since the events of the lunar eclipse. She throws down the brush, which splatters red paint on the paper. This triggers the memory of her aunt Kate's murder, of when the blood is, splattered when, Peter slashes her freaking throat. She also flashes back to her hallucination of Kate rushing toward her in the morgue. Lydia rips the splattered paper away and firmly demands that Allison start over. So she does, and she seems to have a little bit more control, focus, girl. And we see Isaac kind of watching her from across the distance. I'm like, creepy. He's having an Eric Cullen moment. So Styles is trying to get to his locker, but the combination lock isn't working. So as he looks down, it's in, these rune-like symbols, which probably might mean something, but we probably won't know until probably later in the season episodes. Scott says that maybe they just need a little more time to get back to normal, but Styles point out that they hit a reset button on a supernatural beacon for supernatural creatures, and things won't ever go back to normal. With an enhanced werewolf hearing, Scott overhears Kira arguing with her father about pretty much embarrassing her in class. Like, Dad, do you really need to do that? That was, uncalled for. Suddenly, she senses that Scott can hear her even though he is far down the hall. The two lock eyes for just a second before Scott turns back to Styles. So obviously, with her, given the fact that she can sense that Scott can hear her, means that she is not human. So that means she is something else. And given the fact that she is Japanese, I'm going to go with the fact that she is part of the new addition to this mythology to add in, because the show said they're not going to do vampires, which is good, because we don't need any more vampires. As much as I love vampires, we don't need anything more about freaking vampires. God. So the dial on Sal's locker now reads numbers instead of symbols, and he notices that Scott's eyes are, glowing alpha red. Ooh. The pair then dash into a classroom where Scott pretty much is losing control of the transformation, and he buries his claws into the palm of his hands and draws blood, saying pain makes you human, to get himself to turn back to normal. At least it didn't happen in class, because that would have been something to say. Styles realizes that the effects are not just in the head, but are instead real, and he confesses that he doesn't even know if he's awake or asleep anymore. And he says, like a dreamer, he can no longer read. He looks around the classroom and all the posters and the notes on the blackboard are all nonsense. Gibberish! He's having a Percy Jackson moment where he can't read. Lydia pins a target to a tree in Beacon Hills Preserve. Allison, bow in hand, questions if this target practice will help. Lydia said it won't unless she believes it will. So he fires a few arrows, she misses, and Lydia's like, okay, try the Mongolian draw. Allison's like, how the heck you know that? She's like, I read, duh. And so she tries it again, but she misses. So Leah tries to help Allison visualize the arrow going through the target, but this has an unwanted effect of causing Allison to hallucinate her dead aunt running through the woods. Allison grabs her bow and heads off after the bitch saying, I'll be right back. Allison's like, don't say that, because in horror movies, anytime a character says, I'll be right back, they never come back because they didn't got killed off. Allison hears her aunt whispering her name, then sees the dead woman running full tilt at her in the dark. Allison draws her bow and quickly fires an arrow at the specter. Suddenly, back bright in the sunshine, Allison sees she has fired an arrow at Lydia, and it would have killed her if Isaac had not jumped in and grabbed it. Good thing he has been following you and stalking you like Edward Cullen does. Ugh. Sometimes I guess it's good to have an Edward Cullen trait. Oh my god. I'm coughing on air. I'm choking on air. So later, Isaac tells the story to Scott. Scott gets pissed off again, like, why the heck was you following Allison? Kicks this dude again into the hallway. Melissa's like, dude, okay, this house does not have a supernatural ability to help calm the freak down. Styles arrives at his dad's office with a flower arrangement. I'm guessing that's for his mom's grave, because he says one of these to her grave. And sees what his dad's doing. His dad is going through all this old case files to see if they were supernatural in nature, because he has no choice but to apply his new knowledge to old cases. He then explains one of his first cases as sheriff involved the death of a mother and two children. May have had a supernatural component because at the time they believed the family was killed by coyotes and that one of the children, Melia Tate, the photo we saw earlier, was dragged away eaten by a coyote. Now he thinks something else may have been to blame because it happened on a full moon. So you're like, oh snap. Styles notices there are a number of other banker boxes scattered around, packed up with files and labeled delivered to FBI field office special agent Scott Agent McCall. So when he asks about them, his father says they need to talk. Styles then later arrives to class, someone's in the seat, and he points out to the student that, and she responds with sign language. So when he suddenly realizes that everyone is completely silent, he sees his coach at the head of class, and the coach begins to sign as well. So Styles decides to leave, and the entire class begins freaking signing the same message over and over and over and over until he snaps awake in economics class with Coach blowing a whistle at him. He thinks he fell asleep, but Scott says you wasn't sleeping, as is evidenced by his notebook where Styles has covered the pages with words of wake up in various forms and patterns. Outside, the whole group is talking about the hallucinations and dreams. Isaac decides to make a joke like, people like, you need something to end up in a mental institution. And Styles like, can you try to be more helpful? And Scott like, and Isaac like, I spent most of my childhood locked in the freezer. And Styles like, really? You're still milking it? You're still milking it? And I was like, yeah, I'm still milking it. Yeah, I was locked in the freezer. Yeah, I'm still gonna freaking milk it. It's traumatic for me. So Kira, that's the new girl, Japanese, walks up and says she overheard what they was talking about. I'm like, overheard. Well, what census? So she explains that the systems sound like a Buddhist concept of bardo. She says this tradition is a traditional state of being between life and death, and marked by visits from peaceful deities and demons, and ultimately resulting in death. I'm like, that's not it's not happy. So Styles Scott decided to go visit Deaton and to pretty much discuss the hallucination. And he says that from Dr. Deaton's perspective, it says it sounds like Styles' subconscious is trying to communicate with him through sign language. So as he shows him what the message was, they find out it's a riddle. When is a door not a door? The answer to the question is when it's ajar, a playing on the word for a partially open door, and is similar in sounding to the name of a glass cylinder used to store food. Dean says that when they died, they opened a door in their minds and apparently left it partially open or ajar, which he says is dangerous. They need to close the doors in their minds as soon as possible. Sheriff Delancey advised the vet clinic looking for Scott. He needs their help on the Tate case about the coyote attack from 8 years before. He thinks Scott may be able to follow her scent to the body. So they all arrive to the farm. Mr. Tate is packing a small rat trap, explaining that he's been having a coyote problem and the trap will take away the predator's food source. The sheriff launches into his explanation for the visit, but it's all just a ruse to allow Scott and Styles time to break into the missing little girl's room and sniff around. Scott is unable to get a scent because the dog is overwhelming every freaking thing. So they leave without any leads. The sheriff says he expresses regret because he felt like he just reopened this wound of Mr. Tate because now you tell him that it might be murder, and he was like he was just fine with it being just an accident. So Styles explains to his friend that while his father is so intent on solving the case immediately so he can solve one more while he's still sheriff. Later we find out when Scott is sitting there yelling at his father as his mom arrives home, Agent McCall tries to explain that putting together evidence to impeach Sheriff Stilinski for a lack of resolution and ability to close cases is just doing his job. Scott becomes so angry that he begins to transform. Seeing this, Melissa gets him away from his father into the front hallway. She remembered that Styles and Scott had worked out that werewolves develop anchors to avoid unwanted transformation, urging him to find his anchor. Scott says his anchor was Allison, but he doesn't have her anymore. So Melissa tells him to be your own anchor, which Scott manages to do, stopping and then reversing the transformation. She then shares pretty much some wisdom to him, saying that you're going to fall in love again, and that it will be just as intense and just as painful as the first time. She says until you fall in love again, you should be your own anchor, which is true. That's some good advice. That is some really good advice. Like, we're going to fall in love again and get heartbroken, and then fall in love again and get heartbroken, and fall in love again and get heartbroken. It's just how it's going to go. But we have to be our own anchor, people. We can't always count on somebody to help calm our urges, or what's the word I'm looking for? You get what I'm saying. We have to be our own anchor. That's some good wisdom right there. Don't you love your parents, boy, when they give you some good old wisdom? So Scott rushes over to Styles and says, yo, we're going to find a dead body. So they head off into the woods to go try to find his body. Meanwhile, we go over to Allison, and apparently her and Isaac are making out. So Allison asks for reassurance that Scott is okay with their relationship, and Isaac's like, yo, yeah, he's like totally fine with it. So she notices something around his neck, and suddenly it's her auntie, Kate Argent, pops up behind him, pulling a garrote tight around his neck and urging Allison to help her kill Isaac. Allison knows with some surprise that she has a Chinese ring dagger tucked behind her in her bed. Allison wakes up grasping in her bed, and is surprised to actually find out she does have a Chinese ring dagger in her bed. Lydia is asleep nearby, and they appear to have dozed off while sleeping. Meanwhile, in the woods, they come upon a wreckage, and they figure that it probably would have been too much trouble to tow the car out from the woods area, and they found a doll in the wreckage. The same doll seen in the photograph at the Tate's house earlier. The doll's voice box triggers and scares Styles. They hear a roar, and Scott notices two glowing eyes in the trees beyond. He calls on Styles to confirm what he is seeing is real, then sets off after the gray furry creature. Scott catches up and faces it. His eyes, he glows his eyes red, and the other creatures glow blue, indicating it has taken an innocent life. He calls out the name Malia as the animal runs away. So obviously, Malia got turned into a wolf, and she probably killed her parents. That's what I'm going to go and guess. She killed her parents, because your eye don't turn blue when you take an innocent life. So she probably accidentally on a full moon, she probably couldn't control it and killed her mother and her sister. That's what I'm going with. That's my theory. Meanwhile, in our final scene of the show, we see on the table, we see some bloody knives, some wire cutters, some other torture devices. Something everybody has in their home, and a cell phone. A message that reads, Scott McCall, Derek, call me. This is me, followed by another text that says, Scott McCall, Derek, need help, call ASAP. We see Peter and Derek held hanging suspended on a section of chains linked inside a warehouse of some sort. The fence is electrified, and the sending shot through the two men's bodies so they don't, transform. So Peter says Derek's acting like this is all his fault, which Derek points out that this is your fault. And then we see a shadowy figure dial up the electric current. So this is season 3 of Teen Wolf, titled Episode 13 titled Anchors. Episode 14 is More Bad Than Good. So this season will have a total of 24 episodes because we're going to get 2 more of this second half of the season. With the first half being pretty much surrounded about the Alpha Pack, and the second half is going to be more about obviously the gang and their pretty much hopefully not losing their minds, and also we're going to get some mythology from Japan, the Kitsune, 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 I think that's how you pronounce it, which is a Japanese word fox. So what does the fox say? Yeah, I know that was so lame, but anyway, that was a pretty good episode. Had a lot of horror movie feel to it, like seriously, like sort of the cliches of horror movies. But it was pretty good, and I like how they going with a more mature, a little bit more darker tone this second half of the season. It's really good. I'm loving it. And Scott needs to get over the fact that Allison might be having feelings for Isaac and Isaac for her. Okay, Scott, please move on. But I think Scott might have the heart for Kira because they had like a little. They've been having like the little, how you do the thing where you think you like somebody and you've been looking at them, you quickly turn your head away. I think they might put him with her, which might be a good thing, so he can move on. And I'm not sure how this is going to affect Styles because he's been having moments of exception. So I'm not sure if Sky Styles is going to lose his mind or what. So comment, rate, subscribe, and tell me what you guys think. You can also read the written portion of this on Geeked Out Nation. Just type in my name, Sapphire Yagami. I also have some other articles written. And also, if you want to look at reviews for movies, comics, video games, you can also find those on Geeked Out Nation, which is written by geeks for geeks. So comment, rate, subscribe, and I will see you guys next Monday for Teen Wolf.